Aha!
Hello, Ed. Hey, John.
Another Arsenal fan, I see.
Yeah.
Whoa!
Welcome.
I'm wearing the colours.
Welcome to the Hogwarts Professor Football Appreciation subgroup. Huge congratulations. Huge congratulations, of course, to Strike's favourite team in clinching the championship title. And now I hand over to Ed, who knows much more about football than I ever will, coming from a rugby playing nation.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we've won the league finally after 22 years of waiting.
Wow.
So much anticipated. We were runners up 3 years in a row. So we were very, very close to it. And then we were in the final of the Champions League as well, which we were. That was sadly stolen from us. We were the deserving winners without a doubt, but doesn't always pan out that way.
Next time, Ed. Next time.
Yeah,
but
did
you go to the parade, Ed?
No. There was a parade with 1.5 million people turned up in London to celebrate our league victory, and the players had quite a good time as well. That was all good fun.
The Gunners. There was apparently some squabbling because some people were in the parade that weren't really Gunners fans, and I read that the true believers said you can't cheer for the Gunners unless you're a true Gunners fan.
This sounds awfully like Ron Weasley and the Chudley Cannons and challenging people wearing the wrong team pin.
That's right.
Yeah,
well, I have to say that I am that person. I bought this in Piccadilly Circle Square, whatever it is.
Circus.
Because I was coming home from London without any tokens for my family, and so I bought this for my son Zosima, who left it in my office during the great move from Oklahoma City, and so I happened to have it today to throw on as a bandwagon rider. I think isn't that the expression? I am a bandwagon rider. You know?
Arsenal, we're a very broad church. I think we've got a very diverse kind of group. There was actually an article I saw the other day, sort of saying, how is it that Arsenal have such a diverse sort of fan base? So come one, come all. More the merrier.
Is that the reference? Because Strike didn't know why his uncle was an Arsenal fan. That people in Cornwall feel okay rooting for a North London team?
Oh yes. So in my little bit of Glamorgan, because we're more or less equidistant between our two, I call them big teams. In Wales, the big teams, we've got Cardiff on one side, Swansea on the other. Actually, most people in our little bit of Wales will support one of the big English clubs. Man U, the huge Man U supporters down here, but also Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham.
Yeah.
Anyway, all those references right over my head. No idea at all. I finally figured out that Man U was not to some Hindu god, but actually to Manchester United.
Yes.
Oh wow! I feel Ed is like, you weren't born with that knowledge tattooed to the back of your eyelids. All right, sorry, Ed, if that was not an impressive.
I think there's no. Is there a league team, a football league team in Cornwall? I'm not sure there is. I think.
No, I think Redruth used to be in sort of Southwest Division 2, something like that, but I'm not sure they are anymore.
You got Plymouth nearby, but they're not Cornwall. They're Devon.
Well, no, they're Devon. So we would much rather support Edinburgh than we would Plymouth.
It was similar for me growing up. I grew up in West Sussex, And when I was growing up, there was no league team, and this is not just the Premier League. This is sort of going 4 divisions deep. It's sort of it's known as the English League. So there's 92 teams, and none of those 92 teams were in my home county.
Yeah.
The closest sort of league team was Portsmouth, but we were West Sussex and they were Hampshire. So to me, that seemed like that was a local rival that we should be against rather than supporting. But some people did support them as well. And that was part of what motivated me to choose to support Arsenal when I was about 10 years old. And not too far from London where I grew up, so there was some reason there. I've subsequently discovered that actually one of my great grandfathers was in the Royal Artillery, so he was a gunner.
There we are.
I kind of qualified.
I thought you were going to tell me that all
basis.
the Essex guys and gals were gunners. But we're gonna go for that. All right. No reference to Essex people. All right. Anyway, we're here today not to celebrate Arsenal's great victories, but to talk about Ed's exegesis, straight from Essex, straight out of Essex, about the hidden text inside Hallmarked Man. Just as we saw, well, Nick, why don't you explain the context of this? Why are we talking about, the Ickabog and Hallmarked Man? I mean, that is not a natural conjunction.
John, you always set me up like this. Every single show you set me up by this. Let's spin the question to Nick. What's the question going to be about? Well, okay, I'll answer it. This is about the parallel series idea, PSI.
Ooh.
This is a wonderful idea, but whoever first started talking about this is lost in the mists of time. It's just one of those theories that everyone knows and accepts. Way back in 2014, around about the time of the publication of The Silkworm, Dr. John Granger noticed some similarities between the first 2 books of the Cormoran Strike series and the first 2 books of the Harry Potter series, and came up with this utterly incredible, nobody's going to buy into it, zany, wacky theory.
The funny thing about that is that was so early in the going, and the parallels were relatively modest for the first 2 books. I wonder if Rowling didn't read this and think, "Oh, this would be fun."
No, John, I'm not going to stoke your ego anymore. No, I don't believe that Rowling is taking cues from the Hogwarts professor. But,
all right.
But you talk about a theory growing and doubling down on itself. So not just John, but the other contributors to the Hogwarts professor. I'm going to call out Dr. Louise Freeman. She predicted, based on the parallel series idea, that Lethal White was going to be set during the 2012 London Olympics, and it paid off. Now that was in itself, that was wonderful. And any kind of theory you test with a prediction. If the prediction works out, that's maybe not a confirmation, but it's a huge big tick. But then Evan Willis. Then when we discover that it's going to feature the Minister of Culture and Sport, predicted that if he's the victim, then the murderer is going to be his son, a la Barty Crouch and Barty Crouch Jr. And again, I don't think that anyone has previously come up with a theory of this kind that has paid off so handsomely. Everyone's confident on it. I go on a podcast once or twice a year called The Three Broomsticks, and we run through the book's parallels. But all was great and rosy right up to the 7th book of the Cormoran Strike series, and then we hit a problem. We've got a theory that works. Everyone has bought into it. It's great fun. And now we've run out of parallels. Evan Willis again came up with a theory, the tetractys idea, that says the remaining, because Rowling has now confirmed, she's confirmed it's most likely going to be 10, but she's repeated it so often it seems like in her head still it's going to be a 10-book series. Well, there's 3 further books that J.K. Rowling has, which is in order of publication: Casual Vacancy, the Ickabog, and the Christmas Pig. So we've got 3 further books, and we've got 3 books in the Cormoran Strike series that we can't yet fit. That's the context. That's what we're talking about today. So can we find parallels with the Ickabog and the Hallmarked Man?
Okay. And during our excuse me, our group adventure in sharding Hallmarked Man, both the delightful well, there's Ed right here in front of me. I can't say you're delightful. But there's Sandy Hope.
We all think Ed is delightful. Come on, John.
Come on. You're just jumping on the bandwagon here, Nick. Just jumping on the bandwagon. But yeah, Sandy Hope and Ed, all through that adventure of charting this, were noting Ickabog references.
Yeah.
That's so I was saying, Ed, you got to write that up. Ed, you got to write that up. Ed, you got to write that up. And Ed was, working on other things, like, other posts he's already written for the site. But he finally got around to writing up all of his notes for this. So anyway, Ed, the first thing I want to do is I want to talk about Casual Vacancy, because in Evan Willis's theory, Christmas Pig has to be number 10. It's the Rebetto thing. It's Dante. It's everything perfect for the conclusion piece. And he said in his
it's Cupid and Psyche as well, potentially, isn't it?
Yeah,
Christmas
that's right.
Pig, TP, Cupid Psyche.
Yeah, that's right. It's great. It's great. But we get wow. That's too funny. Anyway, so we had to choose between Casual Vacancy and Ickabog as the correspondent with Hallmarked Man. I should say that when I was reading Casual Vacancy, when I was reading Hallmarked Man, I was thinking it was Casual Vacancy. My first read through.
I remember prior to the book coming out, I think both of you were sort of anticipating that it might be Casual Vacancy, more than
one of us,
or
Ed,
Christmas Pig.
One of us, I'm not going to say which one of us, really likes Casual Vacancy.
That could be any one of us, John. That could be any one of us.
Wow. Anyway, that's Ed. Really, Nick, your relationship with Casual Vacancy has to be, unique in Rowling fandom. That's the first book of Rowling that you read.
Well,
seriously, that eliminates at least 99% of all of Rowling readers right there.
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about Casual Vacancy, but Casual Vacancy, I've got this reputation within the fandom now that I'm the guy that likes a Casual Vacancy. But the number of people that sort of sidle up to me and whisper under their breath, I like Casual Vacancy too. They don't want to post about it, but there's a lot of love out there for the vacancy.
Yeah. Okay. I think in a good sized phone booth, you could get all those people to fit comfortably with you, Nick. But anyway, let's move on from there. I know that if you went to a Rowling fan conference and they had several streams of lectures being given at any given time, if there was the Casual Vacancy, option, it would be you talking to a camera, Nick, rather, because there's nobody else in there. All right. Anyway, the reason, as Ed said, that Nick and I were thinking, maybe Casual Vacancy, beside Nick's predilection to see Casual Vacancy everywhere, is I came up with 4.
Okay.
Should I just give one? Let you guys throw the ones that you thought of too. I mean, to me, the one that made me literally jump up was when we found out that Tyler Powell had a peanut allergy.
Yeah.
To me, that was Fats Wall. Bang! Oh, where else have we seen a peanut allergy in anything that Rowling has written? Peanuts. That's it.
It's not Fats that has the peanut allergy. It's Arf Price has the peanut allergy.
That's right. And Fats is indifferent, but Crystal saves
Arf. Yeah.
Gosh, Nick, I'll probably have to read Casual Vacancy again so I can get the characters straight.
That's a truism. Everyone has to read the Casual Vacancy again.
Okay, what else did you guys get?
Well, I'm going to go with probably the most obvious is both books open with a sudden, unexpected death of major male role models. So we've got Barry Fairbrother in Casual Vacancy, and we've got Ted Nancarrow.
Oh, Ted Nancarrow. I was going with Tyler. I mean, both Tyler Powell and Ted haunt the rest of the novel the way Barry Fairbrother, the ghost of Fairbrother, does that. Okay, that's a good one.
You're constantly reminded, what would Barry do? What would Ted do?
Oh, good. That is a good one. Ed, do you have any?
No, I'm not as familiar with Casual Vacancy as I should be. I've read it once. I need to give it a reread, I reckon. But,
as always.
But yeah, I think one of you mentioned that so the Barry Fairbrother death as being like the sort of it's the titular event, isn't it? It creates the Casual Vacancy.
Yes.
And then similarly, the body in the vault is the Hallmarked Man, and and both of those kind of happen before the start of the book and off screen, off stage, as it were. So yeah, there's something there, but yeah,
I think that's Casual Vacancy is sort of it's a prologue, so we get to see it in wincing detail, the horrible death of this man, but it is outside the main action of the book. It is like a prologue. It is a prologue.
A prelude and a prologue.
Yeah.
I thought that Nick was going to say that Ironbridge could be Pagford's sister city.
Yes. Yeah, there are lots of similarities. So it is rural. I'm going to say Pagford is in Gloucestershire. Sorry, Joe Rowling, but it is. They both border Wales. There's lots of Welsh names, as you'd expect in border towns. It is parochial with a capital P. They both run on gossip. There's town bullying dynamic in there. There are lots of similarities. I think you could argue any rural, small town, large village location that J.K. Rowling writes would have these flavors. You can't live for so many years in that kind of environment and not know the dynamics that well.
All right. I'm gonna unless you guys have got more, the big one for me was the golden thread that runs through a lot of what Rowling has written, and that's the incest bit. Because that is Fats Wall. Nick, don't tell me that's not. The Wall family adopts Stuart Fats, as it were, from a it turns out that his mother was how old was she, Nick? You probably have the date, the age right at the tip of your tongue.
I don't, but she was young.
I know it's like 14 or 15.
Yeah.
So there was some worry or concern or suspicion that it was the product of incest. And that really, it's a shocking reveal at the end of the book that really blows up the cocky, authentic Stuart Wall's life. And we have the same kind of thing at the end of Hallmarked Man with the incest reveal about Decima and Rupert. So that's a lot. That's a lot. I can see people saying, pushing back on this.
That's case closed, isn't it? I mean, is this the end of the podcast now?
All right, Mr. Casual Vacancy. Having noted those, Ed, why are you so sure that it's the Ickabog, which is the parallel text with Hallmarked Man? Is it the quantity of all the parallels that you and Sandy and others have found? Their quality, the overarching feel of the works. What is it that makes you pretty confident saying it's the Ickabog?
Well, for me, it was something that occurred to me as I was reading it the first time. I did a little kind of log of my first reading on the comments on the site. I picked a post and I just, each part I kind of put my thoughts after it. And as I was doing that, right at the start, my sort of just my impression really was that it felt more like the Ickabog than it felt like the Casual Vacancy. It didn't have the sort of sordid kind of conflicted feel of the Casual Vacancy.
And Hallmarked Man was a real musical comedy, Ed. I mean,
but what it did have was it had the very central role of the truth and the importance of the truth, and that's probably the main message of the Ickabog is that it's about the vital importance of truth and the insidious nature of lies and deceit, and that seemed like that was a really core sort of principle from the off in the Hallmarked Man, and specifically with regard to the Hallmarked Man and the body in the vault, the fact that there was this sort of this incident that had occurred that was disputed and that there were different narratives, there were different explanations for it. That to me felt like very, very much like the shooting of Major Beamish in the Ickabog, which is a really, important, sort of triggering event for everything that comes after it as well. So that was my kind of initial kind of sense of it was just from those two things, I guess, and the feel that came with it, and then that sort of laid the groundwork. And then as I went through, there were other things that I came across that I thought were more so, and then when I reread it, even more so. And then when I read the Ickabog, again that pulled out even more things as well. And other people have chipped in with some other suggestions as well. And yeah, there are a lot of parallels between the two.
All right. You one of the things that you came up with was about sheep.
Mm.
And I confess, I was waiting for the big, this is going to be like the peanut allergy. This is going to be a great thing. And he came up with sheep, and I went, huh? Sheep? Talk to me, sheep.
Yeah, I mean it's perhaps not like a major theme in either book, in either the Hallmarked Man or the Ickabog. But maybe if you compare it to other Rowling works, I don't know how often sheep crop up. She certainly includes some goats from time to time.
Yeah.
But, these may be two of the more sheep focused books of her oeuvre. But the sheep one, actually, in a way, I'd sort of missed that the first time when I read Hallmarked Man. And it was Sandy, I think, who pointed it out as a contrast to all the lions. When I wrote about the lions, she commented and said, "And lions and lambs." And there were various things there that I'd seen and I'd sort of registered, but I hadn't connected in the Hallmarked Man. So you've got the main one that I had sort of thought about a bit was the Golden Fleece. You've got Ramsey Silver, you've got Lambeth, and you've got Black Sheep Coffee, and of course, sheep links to Robin, because her father is a sheep expert. He's an expert in the reproduction of sheep, and
production and reproduction.
And because of that, they Spike and Robin have joked about it in the past, and therefore it made it onto the charm bracelet as well. And there's reason to think that the items on the charm bracelet may have extra symbolic significance in the books and in the narrative as well. There are sheep in the Ickabog. One of the things that the people who live in the marshlands, the main thing that they're doing is keeping sheep, and not very well, because the marshlands aren't particularly fertile, so they haven't got much to live off. But actually there's almost a the sheep become almost a symbol for the fortunes of cornucopia, because they're sort of looking very bedraggled, and of course it's the shepherd's petition that again is one of the key things that kicks things off. It's the shepherd who's lost his dog, who says that the Ickabog's taken it, who comes to King Fred the Fearless and inspires him to launch a mission, a quest to go and hunt the Ickabog. So shepherd's petition, very, very, very key to it. And then the sheep at the end of the book, they feature a bit more, because they are now healthy, very sort of valuable, worthwhile kind of sheep at the end. And I think it's Roderick, he becomes a sheep farmer, and that's a kind of a mark of the rebirth of the nation of cornucopia. So they definitely are there as a theme, and as something which kind of has some weight to it and some meaning to it. And we've got some Christian symbolisms that as well there, don't we, John? So we know that she likes throwing those in.
Yeah, and that brings us to the other Christian symbolism in Hallmarked Man, which is the fish. I mean, we have Robin and Cormoran and Elvis and Elton, and who else? Is in there? Travolta. The third party always keeps dropping out, which makes it kind of a symbolism about people that have tried to get into their bowl with Robin and Cormoran. They always wind up falling off to the side, because these two were meant for each other. But the fish's name too, Oranda, means a fish that must be worshipped or venerated or something. It's a prayerful name. Ora is the Latin word for prayer. So that was a big fish piece of that book. But there was more fish in Hallmarked Man.
In Hallmarked Man, yeah, they were eating fish a lot. There were many fish and chips suppers. And then there was the meal at the Dorchester, where everybody had seafood.
Yeah.
There were the salmon that adorn the gateposts at Heberley House. There's a load of fish for sure.
Where are the fish in the Ickabog?
There is the main one is probably Herringbone, who was the old wise advisor the chief advisor to King Fred. You know, he was a man of principle and integrity, and so he didn't last very long. And his title of chief advisor was then taken by Lord Spittleworth. So you know, he was this, you know, a bit of a mentor figure, you know, a bit of he sort of perhaps came across as like a bit of a wise hermit or something, you know, sort of long grey beard kind of figure.
Double word, yeah, double word.
Yeah, a bit. Or, you know, again, a bit Christ-like as well, you know. And then there's another fish expert. So we've got sheep experts in one book, and we've got fish experts in the other. And this was the first fake Ickabog attack. Is this woman who's written a book on the fish cornucopia. And again, she's referenced again at the end, you know, alongside these the sheep that are doing very well at the end of the book. The fish in the river are also thriving, and yeah, certainly echoes, you know, the fish and sheep in the Hallmarked Man, I think.
Okay. Here's my challenge question. You didn't really talk about this in your piece, but because what you've described so far has been like the symbolism, which is sort of a coloration backdrop to both books. I mean, you mentioned how the truth, that theme, that's a backdrop in a way. It's kind of that's actually though the point of the books. Is there something akin to the Freemasonry of Hallmarked Man and the Ickabog? Because the Freemasonry stuff is, especially the fact that the Hallmarked Man is draped in specific Freemason regalia. Was there anything that kind of in your face about the symbolism in the Ickabog?
I mean, perhaps it partly depends on how you view the Freemasonry and how the role that plays, the part that plays in the Hallmarked Man. There's certainly an element of you know, questions of corruption. You know, are the police and the members of the various lodges, are they using their Masonic connections to get away with things and, you know, commit crimes and so on and so forth? And yeah, but I think there is potentially a sort of element of that in the, you know, the wheeling and dealing of Spittleworth, you know, particularly, and the kind of the cronies that he has around him. You know, he through blackmail and bribery and, you know, threats of violence, he aligns various people with him, particularly the IDB, not the IDF, the IDB, the Ickabog Defence Brigade, who, you know, they know that there are no Ickabogs there, or that, you know, that they're not, you know, they're defending the nation from the Ickabog. They know that they're on, you know, a complete, you know, false pretenses, and, you know, and yet they go along with it because it's in their interest to do so. So, you know, arguably that's a bit of a parallel if you view the sort of Masonic elements of Hallmarked Man from a kind of self-interested corruption kind of point of view.
I was waiting, Ed, for you to say, John, how could you have missed this? I mean, it is that there's a parallel, I think, in that the Ickabog is, you know, a medieval morality tale type thing that has all sorts of obvious modern elements in it. That, you know, that Rowling is clearly writing a transparency to the world as we live it today inside this seemingly fractured fairy tale. But the Hallmarked Man is, okay, it's London, it's seedy, it's you know, it's grim, it's sex trafficking and murder and horrible things. And yet there's this patina of this medieval-esque fraternity and their symbols. So it's like the one is the mirror image of the other. Right. One is seemingly, medieval fairy tale land, and yet it's what we are today. And the other one is seemingly what we are today in real life, and yet has this backdrop, not only of all the symbolism with the lamb and the fish and the cryptonyms and all those things, but the guy, the murder victim, is actually wearing this regalia of, what is the rank? He's a Christian knight, I think, is what the character, who is not a real person, that writes him up and says he's a Christian knight.
But there are so many of them. So this is part of the ancient and accepted Scottish rite. Ancient and accepted Scottish rite. And of course, there's no evidence of any history going back further than the very late 18th century. Very, very much, you could argue, like the natural history presented by Professor Fraudisham, in that, it's given this shape of something that is very old and traditional and goes back a long way, but doesn't really.
Yeah, it's so yeah, that to me is the connection between the masonry and the Ickabog is much more so than Casual Vacancy. I know, Nick, the Casual Vacancy is all things to everyone, and has to include all the folk tales and things like that.
It's a mirror, John. It's a mirror, John. You see what you put into it.
That point about the medieval in the modern world, that reminds me very much of Sark in the Hallmarked Man.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that I definitely noticed when I first read it, as being a clear connection. Here's one book which is set in, a sort of medieval fairy tale kind of world, and the closest you can get to that, really, in sort of the modern world, is Sark.
The last feudal estate in Europe.
It was the last. It is no longer.
No.
But it was up until 2013 or something like that. So,
the injection
that seems
Sark,
like a definite, sort of that's a strong pointer for me. I think
really, as interesting as the parallels are between Pagford and Ironbridge, I think Sark just takes the table there. Basically, if she had to take you to a place that was like the kingdoms of Cornucopia, it would have been Sark. That's great. That's great. So, Nick, I'll ask you, Nick.
Yeah.
What about Sandy Hope's contributions here?
Oh,
because Sandy,
the lovely Sandy.
I love it. Sandy was like, I could have written this, Ed, and she comes up with these great things.
So she's posted some wonderful comments, which I am not going to editorialize. So I'm going to read what she has written. So she writes, one of my favorite parallels was sticking to the game plan. The ill-fated idea shared by Strike via Uncle Ted and also Lord Spittleworth. So that's the play your own game. Don't let the other man change what you're doing. RFM reminds me of Ma Grunter, trying to appear sober when they're actually drinking on the sly. That's a very good parallel. Dangerous Dick DeLion is not unlike King Fred the Fearless, who both have to learn about being contrite. Robin's bracelet is rather like Daisy's bandelore. Both gifts are initially a hit, but end up secretly hidden or stolen. That's comment one. Now, some really great parallels there, but if that wasn't enough, one of my favorite parallels you mentioned is the Old Forge and the Ickabog's Cave, in which both Robin and the Ickabog tell tragic stories of birth. The Old Forge also reminds me of the transformation of the dungeon once Mrs. Beamish gets a stove installed and starts baking and feeding the prisoners. Mr. Dovetail's broken mind is restored by Mrs. Beamish, helping him remember better times, and Robin's own brokenness is soothed by Strike's transformation from a self-serving, manipulative jerk to a selfless, compassionate listener and a genuine friend. In both stories, the fire is warm and purifying. Isn't that a great comment? And I mean, great parallels.
Seriously,
but just great observation.
That's great. And it points out that, when you read Hogwarts Professor posts on Substack, if you don't read the comments,
you only get a third of it, just a third of the picture
right.
if you don't read the comment.
Sandy also came up with another really good point, which is the footprints. Yeah. So you've got the footprint in the vault, and in fact, both footprints in both books actually give two clues. Okay, so the footprint in the vault in Hallmarked Man both showed that the body had been moved sometime after it had been killed to the position that it was then found in. So actually that kind of revealed that Griff had gone back to kind of mutilate and set up the body after having originally killed Tyler the sort of the day before, and also the whoever did it had a limp, and small feet and a limp. Something. I mean, how you can tell a limp from a single footprint, I don't know, but I'm not a detective.
If it's if it's only one footprint, you've got to be limping, because where's your other foot gone?
Maybe, which is exactly the case in the Ickabog. Was the problem there was that there was only one foot, and so all of the citizens immediately kind of realised that that it was hopping, which could be if you've never seen an Ickabog, maybe it's a one-legged
unipod thing. Could be,
could be. C.S. Lewis had some of them, didn't he? Voyage of the Dawn Treader. There are some one-footed things jumping around. And also then who is it? Bert Beamish. He realizes that it's the same design, the same shape of footprint as the one that Dan Dovetail made for him, and therefore realizes that Dan must be carving these things in the dungeons. So the footprint's a big deal in both, and that was one I missed, and Sandy pointed that out. But that's
I think Sandy pointed that out.
Sandy
pointed that out during the charting. She was like, "There we go." Yeah. I mean, that is great work. And Sandy mentioned the cave and the ectopic pregnancy and stuff. My favorite parallels in your piece were between the incest and the ectopic pregnancy in Hallmarked Man and the Ickabog's manner of conceiving children and birthing them.
Yeah.
And forgive me, Ed, I had a picture of you laughing out loud when you figured that out. I had that picture because I laughed out loud when I read your post. I was like, wow, that is so good. But it does bear some explaining. Can you?
Yeah, that was one that I got without having to reread the Ickabog. I mean, it was on sort of when I was reading Hallmarked Man with the Ickabog in mind, and you got that conclusion. There is, I think, a strong link there, especially when we know that parenthood, motherhood, childbirth, etc. are such golden threads. They're such key things for Rowling. And in fact, it almost and so you've got at the end of Hallmarked Man, we discover that the baby lion is the product of incest because his parents were half siblings. So they were both Loncasters, and the two, and throughout the book, they talk about being soulmates as well. And in fact, there's a little clue that Rupert uses the Italian phrase for it, which is a hint that he might be in Sardinia. which actually translates as soul twins. And so again, that's another little hint perhaps to their true the true nature of the relationship. So you've kind of got this idea of, you've got two parts of the same family, male and female, two parts of the same soul that unite to produce this child. And I think there's a definite link parallel there with the Ickabog, which is both male and female, and produces its own children without any other party being involved. That there's a similar idea there. In some ways that is quite incestuous. Genetically, it's you don't have the mixing and the diversification in the gene pool, there's definitely a kind of link there. To the extent that it kind of made me think that was always a pretty strange thing to have in a kid's book, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And even made me think, has she actually been planning this ahead? Because there are suspicions that incest may have a further role to play in the strike books. So, was she planning that ahead? When she wrote that ending and sort of came up with these particular traits for the Ickabog, was she consciously kind of working towards something that she could then include in the strike series as well?
Well,
that's rough, because the Ickabog is conception, not how it conceives, but it's the conception of the story it's got to be way back, doesn't it, Nick?
She was certainly talking about this prior to the publication of Deathly Hallows. So she was talking about, in the documentary Year in the Life, she mentions to Runcie, the interviewer, that probably the next thing she publishes is going to be the political fairy tale. So it's already pretty well plotted by then. But it's never easy with Rowling trying to work out where the conception and the planning and the plotting sort of fits in with any of her works, because of course the Casual Vacancy actually was the first thing she published, and she claims the idea of a vacancy on a council came to her when she was flying for a Harry Potter publicity tour. But that's not the same thing, as because actually the vacancy, although everything sort of works around the vacancy, that isn't what the book is about. And I've long thought that the genesis of Casual Vacancy as a story predates Harry Potter. I mean, we're talking about the private joke kind of
that's it.
Era.
Private joke.
Yeah.
It's a truism in psychoanalytic theory of critical theory for novels and plays, etc., that the first story is the one which is most personal.
Yeah.
And Rowling was working on a private, and Rowling was working on a private joke when she was inspired to write Harry Potter. I've always thought that was in large part what Casual Vacancy turned out to be. And she, of course, is somewhere laughing hysterically at John's idiocy, but so we only exist to amuse the presence. All of us here are just court jesters to give Joe a laugh.
In the introduction to the Ickabog, she says that it's got a very long history, that it was something that she came up with for her kids when they were little, and that then she shelved it, and then they, I think, sort of were instrumental in kind of getting her to bring it out again. I do wonder if this means that this is another kind of reason to think that we might be getting them in sort of writing order, that therefore perhaps Casual Vacancy is next, and then Christmas Pig would be the last on that basis of how she's writing.
The
parallels.
Yeah, it's very possible. But again, Christmas Pig is another one with a really long gestation. But at least according to the history, we know that her son was alive, conscious, and had a pig by the time that idea came about. So we can sort of maybe put that third still.
Yeah, but like you say, it's inspiration versus actually writing it down versus actually publishing it, and it could be that you got 3 different orders for the 3 books on that basis.
Okay, that was great. What haven't we mentioned here of all these things? Let's go around the table here.
So I'm going to shout out to Tam Spells, because her comments were really good, I thought, because she picked up on something which
always good.
Again, it's the sort of thing that when you write a post like this, someone makes a comment, you're like, well, obviously, why didn't I think of that? And it's monsters, right? That we've got monsters in the Ickabog is a monster. Although it turns out actually to be a friendly monster, but it's very much kind of a classic fairy tale monster. And then how that's perhaps mirrored in monsters in Hallmarked Man, and particularly you've got the Al-Hota crevasse, and that there's a monster that of that gorge eating people, which is a very sort of Ickabog type thing, and you've also got the Liddell and Beamish connection, right? So Liddell and Beamish, both names that in some ways you might think not classic Rowling character names, because they don't seem to sort of obviously spell anything out. But someone had mentioned that Liddell was the name of surname for Alice Liddell, who was the inspiration for Alice in Wonderland. And the word Beamish pops up in Through the Looking Glass in the Jabberwocky.
Jabberwocky, yes.
And
Beamish boy.
It's Jabberwocky is the name of the poem. The monster in the poem is actually Jabberwock, which is not far from Ickabog, phonetically in terms of the rhythm and the assonance of it. So and you can read through Jabberwocky, and it's got a bit of the feel of the Ickabog, so yeah, I think that's quite an interesting connection, the Alice connection and the monsters connection.
That monsters thing you mentioned, and the gorge with the monster in it. Really, I think the monster, and it's also having a nice side inside Hallmarked Man, is Islamicism. Perhaps. There's this haunting idea that there's a terrorist thing in the country that's haunting the whole country, and it's hidden and nobody knows where it is, and how do you isolate it, where do you find it, and yet one of the things it is used
by the politicians as a a reason to motivate people or to incite people. Definitely that aspect to it, I think.
But when you actually meet the only Muslim that you meet are the Hussein Muhammad family.
Yeah.
And they're very nice people. They're like working class people that doing their best, very intelligent, very cooperative, very observant, very intelligent people. And so you have this kind of jarring thing because you're feeling the pressures that you see in Liddell's sister, who is undone with really rational fears about Islamicism because they murdered her brother. I mean, that's not an irrational fear.
But even she recognizes, I mean, at the point she wants to have a gun, but even she recognizes, and she wants to have a gun to kill Islamic people. But even she, in her madness, recognizes, but that's not right. Yeah.
That's not a good thing. But the government takes her off the thing and isolates her, which just sends her further around the twist. That's I like the monsters thing. I hadn't really thought of, that there is a monster inside Hallmarked Man that is a political thing, which is yet manipulated by the government to be something maybe that it's different than what it might be.
Which is a very Ickabog theme, government manipulation. There's also the gorilla in the Hallmarked Man is a monster, It's a monster whose identity is in question and who's is somewhat mythological in that way.
And it's not really the monster; it's someone pretending to be the monster to frighten people. Yeah,
definitely feels like a bit of a connection there.
Yeah,
you made a connection with St. George, Ed.
Yeah. So I mean, that's very apparent reading the Hallmarked Man. Definitely a very big theme. Lots of St. George's crosses and England flags that have that on. There's the Sark flag that has St. George's cross as well. So it comes up time and time again, and sort of ties in with the lions and sort of symbols of Britishness and Englishness, and so on. And then there's also the most sort of detailed reference in Hallmarked Man is the clock at Liberty, which I've never seen. I might need to have a look at it. But there's a clock that actually, sort of when it strikes midday or something, there's a sort of diorama that plays out of St. George killing the dragon, right?
Oh, wow.
And then I'd forgotten sort of any reference to anything like that in the Ickabog, although in a sense, the very nature of it, the dragon being the, sort of whatever you want that to symbolize, and the true noble, pure-hearted man who can go and defeat the dragon. But specifically, when he's about to set out on his his mission to go and find the Ickabog, King Fred, he's put on his fancy new outfit, just for the purpose, and he's sort of admiring himself in the mirror, and he pictures himself killing a serpent-like beast, in a very kind of St. George type image, which instantly when I read that on that reread, kind of connected immediately to all that St. George stuff in the Hallmarked Man as well.
The St. George is if you just Google St. George and the Dragon, icon, you'll see the Orthodox traditional iconography about St. George, and he's on a horse. He has a long javelin, and his face is absolutely passionless. He's not angered. He's not excited or any way. He looks, it's a very monastic look for a guy on a horse with a javelin, and he's killing. Usually, it's a dragon. It's a large creature beneath his horse's feet, and he's impaling the dragon with it. And it's in some Greek icons, it's a Turk. But anyway, this most of them it's a dragon, and it's meant to represent the passions, the desires, the ego-driven aspects of the person. And St. George's real victory is that, it's sort of like jihad in Islam is certainly does have, especially in the post-Medina aspects of the Quran, it has very clear political warfare aspects. But to a Sufi or the more mystical sides of Islam, the jihad is the internal victory. Is the interior war that you're in with your own passions and your own selfish desires. The false Cupid in terms of Rowling's imagery, and in both books we see. Like Fred, standing there imagining himself being, George slaying the dragon when he is an absolute prisoner of the dragon. He is the dragon in the story, and the dragon is imagining himself killing something imaginary. And then the Hallmarked Man, we have the same type of thing. The the true Christian knight, the true St. George figure, is Tyler Powell. And the satanic figure, the pornographer, the sex trafficker, and then the murderer of the story has to slaughter him underground in a silver vault, which is light in the darkness, really. To kill as this, again, Christian knight, this Christ figure, and has to mock him by putting all of this Christian knight regalia around him. So yeah, the St. George stuff is, it's like, this is what this is about. Again, this Cupid, false Cupid idea, and really the satanic figure of, I didn't realize until I'm working on the names post now, and Ian Griffiths is really a very bad man, a very bad man.
Did you just realize, John?
Wait a minute, he's a bad guy. It wasn't until I was working on Gretchen Schiff's name and realized, wow, Griffiths got her involved in pornography. I mean, that's just gratuitous evil. Like, he wasn't making a lot of money that we know of as a pornographer, and yet he decided he was going to just do that to torture her with her conscience and fear of what was going to happen with those pictures. I thought, man, Ian Griffiths is just like, what didn't he do that was evil inside these books? And the fact that he's a limping, short guy, he has this devil aspect to him, that he's basically, the limping is like he's got hooves. So it's oh well, the St. George thing that really resonated with me because of this picture.
When Griff first appears, he sort of pops up as well. He kind of pops up from down below.
That's right.
He's got a sort of there's something devilish about that, I think, as well.
Yeah, he's a cross between something bacchanalian and satanic. The whole guitar thing and the rock and roll thing is just something
he pops
off.
up holding the guitar at that first meeting.
And of course, the iconography of his house is of the Lord smoking a joint. And
that's probably the most tasteful thing he's got in his living room.
But it's referenced, I think, 4 or 5 times in the book. It's like the most referenced work of art that's referenced, and certainly is it the last thing that Strike sees before he passes out at the finish.
Yes, that's called out, and there's of course the Belgian clue, which was the mannequin piece, is called out a few times.
More tasteless stuff.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I've got. You discussed in your post that you went through 2 stages before arriving at your conviction that the Ickabog was the model. First, you said you noticed the overarching story, and then on rereading the Ickabog for specific detailed parallels, this has got to be it. Ed, I dare you in front of Nick Jeffrey, champion of all things Casual Vacancy. Do you think we should do a reread of Casual Vacancy? Have a group trip to Pagford to see if there aren't more specifics there too, or how we nailed this thing down?
Well, I'm pretty. I find what I found to be pretty compelling in as far as it goes so far. But if we're right about the whole series, then the next book should be a parallel with the Casual Vacancy, and therefore that definitely would merit reading the Casual Vacancy at some point in the next 12 months, I would suggest. So
you're suggesting we'll have another musical comedy in Sleep Tight Evangeline that once more will have this light
well, we know it's going to be gentle blues music themed Sleep Tight Evangeline, don't we?
It's interesting. Like as I mentioned before, I think we've sort of, particularly I think from the Psyche myth, there's this sort of idea of Robin, probably maybe Cormoran, going through hell, right? And having that sort of journey of trial and redemption and everything else, which matches perfectly with the Christmas Pig and the Land of the Lost, and so it's almost just a question of which of the two remaining Strike books that is. But if I try and think what would a parallel to the Casual Vacancy look like, again, I'm not as familiar with it as I am. I've read the Christmas Pig a couple of times, but one of the things I struggle with the Casual Vacancy is I don't know if there is a overarching kind of theme narrative to it in the same way that you could, and again, with the Ickabog, it's about truth and it's about, deception and, fighting the good fight and, battling against the forces of evil to, to come through in the end and all that. But I don't have the same sense of a, sort of an obvious kind of, right, what would it look like? What would a parallel to the Casual Vacancy in the Strike world look like?
So Casual Vacancy for me is not a destination novel. Now, Rowling has said that the theme, what she's trying to write, what everyone should come away with, is that the light of God shines from every soul. Now, and this was to rip it out of context and hold it up to mockery, which is a terrible thing to do. So this was in a discussion about Sikh religion. But I think what she's trying to get at and what she was trying to portray is, I've always said she's the queen of nuance. Everyone is complicated. Everyone is just as evil as everyone else. Everyone is just as capable of redemption as everyone else. So the big takeaway from me was the parallels between Casual Vacancy and the Harry Potter series. And the key parallel to me was Fats and Voldemort, particularly Deathly Hallows, because the great denouement for Voldemort in Deathly Hallows was he had an out. He had a way to get out. All he had to do was recognize what he had done. And Rowley says the problem is that would have destroyed him. And at the end of Casual Vacancy, we have Fats, through the tough love of his mother and the gentle love of his father, is forced to confront what he had done. And he is destroyed. But Fats doesn't end with that destruction. There is the opportunity for redemption at that point. And he is the most inhuman character through that entire book. He is the Voldemort. And yet even Voldemort has that opportunity of redemption at the end. I mean,
I don't know, Ed. I feel like we're reading
Casual Vacancy.
That's great.
Are we going to get a killer with a shot at redemption? Then are we going to see that in a Strike book?
Possibly, but that's as I say. It isn't a terminus. It isn't a destination book, because you finish Casual Vacancy as a one-off, and there'll never be a sequel. But you're finished with that glimpse of redemption, right?
Yeah.
You can't finish a series with that. You would need an epilogue and an epilogue and an epilogue.
Yeah.
So I think if Casual Vacancy isn't Hallmarked Man, and Ed, you've made a very compelling case. I may have to throw in the towel at this point, but if it's not the Hallmarked Man, it's got to be Sleep Tight Evangeline. I can't see it being the terminus. Christmas Pig had a wonderful termination at the end. That was a finish to that book. I feel that's more like a book 10.
I agree.
Well, now that you've thrown in the towel, Ed, I'm going to repeat what you've said, and I hadn't thought of really, was that if Strike 9 is going to be Robin's journey through hell, boy, it's going to be hard to not have the Christmas Pig be that parallel.
Yeah.
So
maybe,
it might be Strike 10 that we see that journey finally, you know?
Well, it could be. Or we could say that Strike 8, Hallmarked Man, was both Casual Vacancy and the Ickabog. And we've laid out some parallels here from both of them. And that 9 will be the Christmas Pig. And that before we get to Strike 10, there'll be another Rowling novel.
Okay.
Well, we've got some titles.
Yeah, I seriously. I mean, it's. I think she's talked about other projects too. She always says she's working on other things. So, oh well, you heard it here first. If that turns out to be the case, but
there's a futuristic, not a sci-fi, but there's a futuristic plot that's been kicking around now for a few years.
Oh well, Ed, hats off.
Really well done.
I have to put my Arsenal hat back on, and then I'll take it off and say really well done. I think we've nailed the parallel series idea for the book we didn't think would have a parallel. And Evan's theory, I've written to Evan, and he says, yeah, I see it. He also thinks that, unless I misunderstood him, that Christmas Pig is going to be the summit of the pyramid, the Detractus pyramid. So let's especially now that Nick's explained to us how important and beautiful Casual Vacancy is, let's take another trip back there.
I'm reading also like one more Ickabog Hallmarked Man parallel that I found quite compelling, and I think this is one that you particularly will appreciate, John, because it was from something that you pointed out, which was the avenging angels, the way that Strike at the end of the Hallmarked Man, he almost becomes a sort of embodiment of Tyler Powell avenging his death. Something you said and pointed out, and I kind of reread that whole chapter, passage, etc. following, and I totally see the case for that. And then there's this line at the sort of key point where Bert Beamish comes to confront Spittleworth. And what was it? It said, Spittleworth had the crazy notion that Major Beamish had risen from the dead to punish him.
Yeah.
When he sees Bert, So, yeah, exactly in line with what you were saying, exactly the same idea that Bert became the embodiment of his father, exacting revenge against Spittleworth.
Yeah. And isn't it his father's medal? That
silver medal, his silver medal.
Yeah, that frenetic scene where Strike has his ear all but cut off.
Yeah.
And the blood is pouring from him. And yet he climbs the stairs, he goes through the full interrogation process. He's drinking whiskey, which probably the worst thing he could possibly have done while he's losing blood. It's just and yet he retains consciousness and lucidity and gets the information he needs to make sure we don't get a no fault decision or no decision thing, which of course he couldn't get anyway. But anyway, that is almost as if he is the puppet to a disembodied force. Yeah. He has become this avenger of kind, and whether you think it's because he feels that he just knows Tyler Powell, or that Tyler Powell has really come back from the dead to take his revenge on this.
Not proven. The verdict is not proven. Keep an eye out for when the paperback editions come out to see if that's been changed.
Maybe the whiskey is because he's possessed by the spirits of could be the spirit of Tyler, or could be the Holy Spirit. But I actually feel like that, because that's very uncharacteristic of Strike in that book. He's sort of being much more sober and much more responsible, and so on. He's not, sort of being impulsive and reckless and stuff. And then suddenly, there's a complete change of character in a way for that whole part, which
in contrast with Wardle's behavior in that scene. Barkley and Stryker are like, kick him in the head, kick him in the head again, I mean, that's and they send Wardle out of the room, much as they've thrown off any kind of their usual self-restriction. I want to do a quick shout out here. Yesterday, I received my copy in the mail of Solomon Schmidt's A Pen to Change the World, The Life of J.K. Rowling. As you can see, it's a monster book. It's 500 some pages. And he sent it to me, sent Nick a digital copy. We're going to do reviews of this. We'll be talking about this and all the other things that Solomon Schmidt found. And I've extended an invitation to Mr. Schmidt to come and talk with us here in the podcast, and we'll be grilling him.
Keep an eye out for our reviews. John's going to write one. I'm going to write one. And then we have invited Mr. Schmidt onto the program to apologize for our reviews.
Anyway, Ed, thank you as always.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
What's your next project, Ed? I love all the work that you do. All I have to do is cut and paste it into the thing.
I think I'm done on Hallmarked Man. So who knows? Maybe there's some Rowling books that we haven't done a ring analysis of yet. Maybe we need to pick one and go back and do a ring theory.
One thing I would like you to do, now that you bring that up, Ed, is that I did a provisional. Oh my goodness! Yes, there is Ink Black Heart, which has never been charted, but
we made a start on it many years ago.
That's right, with a friend of mine. The Ickabog. It has what I describe as a fairly obvious ring structure.
It's worn a bit. I've taken some of the gold off it.
My interpretation of it, if you're not familiar with what I wrote about the ring structure, I would love to have an independent analysis and see if you come to similar conclusions.
Could do that. I do reckon that there are lots of parallels there that we haven't covered today. So
yeah,
people are interested, do check out the post, because there are loads of little tidbits and
if anyone spots any more, please stick them in the comments. Yeah,
one of the things
we will find them.
Ed came up with this character, that character, rundown. I was just like, wow. Yeah. It's like dramatis personae on facing pages. Like, here they are. That was beautiful, and we didn't talk about that at all. Shame on me.
I quite like Cankerby as Shankar, because there's similarity in the name. That's quite good.
All right. Until Ed charts the Ickabog. I'd love that, and maybe we should finally do the Ink Black Heart, because it's the
missing piece at the moment.
The big book that we haven't charted its parts of yet. To go back into charting mode. All right. Thank you again, Ed, for these wonderful posts, and to Nick always for your hospitality here as we come into your living room, your virtual living room. And we'll talk. I'll be posting probably before this post goes out. I will have already put up my Kryptonins post, and we'll be talking about that.
Great.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Salute.